Hello, I'm Jane Mrvan. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. Really the purpose of making this video today is because my husband Frank Mrvan is running for Congress in the 1st District. I think a lot of times people see him as, on the very professional level and, a level where he is, working and serving. But I wanted to give you a different perspective, a perspective from my point of view. So first and foremost, I grew up in Hessville, Indiana, Hammond and Hessville, and I have, we grew up on Tennessee Avenue for the most part. And the funny thing is, Frank only grew up, 5 or 6 streets away from me on Maryland. He actually was a transfer student from Bishop Knoll over to Morton, and that's where we met. Frank and I started out as just really good friends, and I really enjoyed him. He was kind of like more of a big brother type. But I don't know, there was something different about Frank. There was something really special. There was an immediate connection. It seemed natural that he and I would always end up together talking and laughing and having fun together. Eventually, natural progression is that we started dating. And one of the most memorable moments that I remember is sitting on the stairs at Morton High School right outside of the office. And it was during class time, so it was just so unique that Frank was out at the same time I was. And we ended up in that stairwell just talking for probably about 10 or 15 minutes. And it's funny because to this day he will say, when I left that moment when we were on the stairs and talking, I knew I was going to marry you. So Frank and I actually, we went to my junior prom together, which means he was a freshman at that point at Ball State. So Frank obviously graduated from Morton, carried on and went to Ball State. He studied journalism, communications, and political science, go figure. And I ended up at Purdue University in West Lafayette, and I studied to be a dietitian. So I'm a dietitian, I'm a registered dietitian. And during our college years, Frank and I connected all the time on the weekends. It was hard to get through the week sometimes because, we were really close. We were really good friends on top of the fact that, we were dating, but Sunday would come along and it was always so hard. We would always say, we had the Sunday blues. We would call it the Sunday blues because Sunday, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, preparing to get back to school. Frank had a 4-hour drive. I had a much shorter drive if we were back at home in Hammond. Anyway, very cute. It's a good memory. It's good to miss someone, right? So then, obviously, Frank and I both graduated, and we both, found ourselves back at home at our hometown. I started working for the Indiana Department of Education with my dietitian degree, and Frank had various jobs in sales. He started from a car salesman to a liquor salesman to selling in the environmental industry. Yeah, so, normal courtship just like anyone else, spending a lot of time, going to the city for dinners and lots of fun things. And then, I guess the natural progression in a relationship is that you end up getting married. And yes, Frank did end up asking me to marry him, and I said yes. So it was actually Christmas morning, and I really had no idea. We talked about it. Obviously, it's the natural progression of things, but he really surprised me. And of course, I said yes. And then it was wedding planning time. And it was so exciting. It was so fun planning a wedding. And we decided we would get married at St. Joseph Church in downtown Hammond. And what a beautiful church that is. The ornate architecture coupled with the absolutely beautiful stained glass windows, the pews of dark mahogany wood. It was absolutely a beautiful, beautiful wedding. My sister Kelly stood up. She was my matron of honor. All of our families, all of our friends. I think we had about 430 people in attendance. It was a huge wedding. And then we had a great reception. We had, I think we had about 7, bridesmaids, groomsmen on either side. And we had a big party at the Dynasty in Hammond also. And it was definitely a day to remember. And I'm grateful that our parents were able to give us a wedding like this. So And then Frank and I took our honeymoon, and we went somewhere beautiful and, experienced time away on a beautiful vacation together. So we moved into this home. It's been almost 20 years. We love it here. And we had about 6 years before we ended up starting a family. So Frank and I had lots of parties and holiday gatherings here, a lot of family doings. We went to a lot of concerts. We did a lot of road trips. We really spent that time together. Then along came Genevieve. Genevieve is, she was born in 2003. And it was, our worlds changed as we all know, becoming parents. Parenting it's the most important job. It makes everything else I do in this life and everything else Frank does in his life. It makes all those things look like a walk in the park. And then before I get too far along though, we did have a second child about 4 years later, and that's Scarlett, my little Scarlett Grace. Such a good baby, so easy. And here we are with 2 kids. We have a newborn, we have a 4-year-old, and it's a lot of work, and we're working and trying to make ends meet, and trying to provide, just at that age, really trying to take care of the kids and make sure they have everything they need, when you're working, caregiving, all the things that come in. Yeah, so the kids ended up doing preschool at the Montessori in Hammond, and really we volunteered so much at the Montessori. It was such a family environment. I think Frank even served on the board at the Montessori, and we met so many wonderful families. And then your circle even starts to grow bigger. You have all your friends from high school and college who are still around. You have your family. And then now when you have kids, you meet so many other families that are going through exactly what you're going through and experiencing all the things that you're experiencing. So it's so easy to connect and to build a network of moms and dads and create these long-lasting friendships. At this point, I think right before Genevieve came along, Frank ran for the board. And I think I got pregnant maybe right after, and he was victorious. He worked so hard making sure that he literally touched every single voter. To him, it wasn't about big picture, shining the spotlight on him, making him appear to be something more than he is. It was about making sure that he touched every voter, and they had conversations, and he wanted to know what they wanted to see in a leader. And he won overwhelmingly. It was a lot of fun to celebrate the hard work that went into that campaign. Campaigns are a lot of fun because you meet some really great people along the path, but they also can be very challenging. So then just a couple years later, Frank had the opportunity to become the North Township Trustee, and he ran in a caucus election, and he became he earned the spot as the North Township Trustee. And really, it has been his pride and joy. This job has afforded him the opportunity to help people every single day, people who are vulnerable, people who have challenges, people who come into hard times. And I get a call from Frank, and he told me our current Congressman, Pete Visklowski, had officially retired. He announced his retirement. And Frank and I had always talked about next steps, and Frank's always the kind of guy that he just kind of waits for things, he feels things out, he never takes anything for granted. And we talked about if one day Pete Visklowski retires, if he would ever run for Congress. And we both agreed he absolutely had the qualifications, the character, and the ability to take this on. And so I get a call from a girlfriend while I'm at a meeting, and I don't answer, of course, because I'm in the middle of the meeting, but I get a text, and Vanessa said, "Frank just announced for Congress." And because I wasn't able to have that conversation with him because I was in a meeting, he went on WJOB, and literally moments after Congressman Pete retired, Frank announced that he would be running and that he would be a candidate, and a viable one at that. And so let's just kind of talk about some of the things that he has done as the North Township trustee, which makes him more than qualified to be your 1st District Congressperson and to be a member of Congress. And I want to start with character, because for me, character is the most important thing of a man, a woman, or anyone for that matter. And Frank's character is unwavering. Frank has always acted in a manner in which was never self-serving. He's always given of himself tirelessly, unselfishly, purposefully. As long as I have known Frank, he has never been wanting to be, in the center, in the middle of anything. Frank takes care of all of his neighbors, his employees, people who come to Frank. He's there for them, and when he tells you something, it's because he means it. So there are so many countless things that Frank has done, which has made him more than qualified to be your next congressman. And he helps the vulnerable. He helps those who need financial assistance and who come into difficult times. I know there was, when there was the Munster flood, he immediately went into crisis mode. And he provided services and support to the individuals of Munster and in the entire North Township who were affected by the flood, to make sure that they could get into their homes as quickly as possible. He's also, when BP Amoco went on strike, there were so many individuals who came to his office, so many working men and women who needed Frank's help, needed the township services. And Frank, no questions asked, pulled out their programs and was able to help so many individuals within the union. He also gets calls from individuals all throughout the day and night, people who don't have a place to stay, people who are literally on the streets here in our community because they don't have anywhere to go. And it could be 7 o'clock at night and we could be finishing up dinner and Frank is gone. He usually will reach out to his chief, Lori or Virgie, and they will team up and make sure that these people are taken care of. These are our neighbors. We need to take care of each other. And that's exactly Frank's mentality. He also services individuals who have deaths in the family and they can't afford a proper burial. Can you imagine not being able to bury your mother or your sister or your aunt? The North Township trustee, along with the programs and services they offer, provide this service to people in the community, people in North Township. They'll tell me, your husband has done wonderful things for me and my family, and I want to thank him. And I don't care where we are or what we do, people are always approaching us and saying such wonderful things about Frank because he's affected so many people in this community, so many families, far outstretching. Frank also provides transportation services. I know that a lot of transportation services in the area have been shut down and people are in need. You have people who are disabled. You have elderly people who need to get to the grocery store, who need to get to doctor's appointments. People that just need to get out and breathe. And Frank provides a service to so many in North Township. So I can go on about all the various things that Frank has done for our neighbors. But what I really want to tell you is that Frank is honest. He's good, he's whole, he cares. What you see from Frank is what you're going to get. He's extremely authentic, and you can definitely count on him in a time of crises, as well as he likes to laugh with people as well. On a little bit more of a serious note, I want to talk about one of Frank's programs, which is the most important to me and to my family. It's his No More Secrets program. And what a phenomenal program it is. But this allowed all of these entities, along with Frank, to go into the school systems, stretching far and wide throughout Northwest Indiana, and to be able to talk about a really challenging and emotional subject, and that's child molestation. And just to give you some background and the motivation why Frank launch this is because I'm a survivor, and my sister Kelly was a survivor as well, and she's no longer with us. And this program would have really, really been instrumental and important to help us when we were in high school, when we were in middle school. And so Frank was able to go in the schools and talk about these challenges. He only talked about child molestation, but he talked about body safety and inappropriate touching. And he talked about where you can go for help. He talked about the fact that this is inappropriate. He had survivors come forward, they talked about it as well. And really what ultimately happened and is this entire group was able to go to the State House in Indianapolis and testify on behalf of all of the survivors out there, like me, like you, like my sister who's no longer with us. And eventually this became law that every year, every school year, it's mandated 1 hour of practice or teaching to take place so that children of all ages can understand that this is wrong and it's inappropriate and you don't have to live like this. And there is somewhere that you can go for help. And Frank provided all of those services along with the North Township Trustee's office and all of those individuals who came forward to drive this program to help and protect children. And so I've basically told you who we are, I've told you who I am. I've talked to you about Frank on a more personal level, who he is. I've also shared with you his life going through high school and how we met. I've also talked to you about his qualifications, which are so important to be a member of Congress. I shared with you a lot of things about his programs and how all of these programs are so important to our community, so important to our vulnerable population, so important to seniors and to children. So many things that Frank does at the park. I didn't even mention just having the park across the street, and the care that they give the park is such an important part to our quality of life and so many people in the North Township. But what I want to really ask you now is, it's kind of a historical moment, right? We have a congressman who's been there for 36 years. He's retiring. You're going to have the opportunity to vote for your next congressman. Select somebody new on the ballot. There are a lot of individuals on the ballot. I hope that I've really got my point across, and I hope that with Frank campaigning these last 6.5 months, on top of him working for you the last 15 years, I really hope that you understand and you could see Frank for the authentic person that he is. And so it brings me great joy and great pride, and I'm so proud of Frank. It brings me great joy to ask for your vote on June 2nd. Early voting starts on May 26th, and you can vote from May 26th through June 2nd. And I take Frank's words from him, but I humbly and respectfully ask for you to vote for my husband, Frank Mrvan, for United States Congress of District 1 on June 2nd or before. So grateful for the time that you spent with me today. I appreciate it, and I thank you, and I'm so excited for June 2nd, and I hope we're all able to toast together soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.